two great men, Billy Laird and Laird-Weems. Billy's here today in person, but I can assure you Don is here in spirit. If you'll indulge me just a few minutes, I'd like to tell you why I think that these two men are being honored today. Billy and Don gave so much of themselves to NLU and ULM. They were always working tirelessly for the good of the university. And back when ULM was NLU, Don worked in many areas. He taught economics, he recruited high school students, he was director of admissions, but by far his favorite job was that of alumni director. Alumni relations was Don's true compassion, and anyone that knew him knew that. Billy hired Don for that job, and over the years they became the best of friends. This was never just a job for either of them. It was a privilege to serve the university. I'm sure many of you here today remember the many alumni get-togethers, including the shrimp boils, the crawfish boils, and the tailgating with Don and Rick Owens. And of course, Don and Rick managed to work in a golf game every time they went on a trip. They were always building relationships with the alumni. I know that Billy, who's sitting right there, had to bite his lip and hold his tongue more than just a few times in dealing with Don's practical jokes and always pushing the envelope with each of the trips they took. Then came retirement for the two of them. Don was diagnosed with multiple myeloma in the spring of 2012. As a result of this, we were required to stay in Little Rock for 10 months for his treatments at UAMS. During this time, Rick Owens stepped up and he spent every other weekend with Don. This allowed me to take time to come back home and take care of matters here. Rick took Don to the hospital each and every day. He watched ball games with him and golf tournaments on TV. What a wonderful friend he was to Don. But as life happens, Rick was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the summer of 2013. After months of hospitalization, Rick was eventually able to return home. But Don never forgot his friend, and he never forgot the friend that Rick was to him. Every chance he got, he visited with Rick, who by this time, because of physical limitations, was basically homebound. If Rick was up to it, Don would take him riding. They would visit their old fishing haunts, and they would relive all the wonderful memories they had of working here at the university. Rick lost his battle with cancer in the fall of 2014. Through all of this, Don and I went back and forth to Little Rock for his treatments there. They often required extended stays. I believe the best thing I ever did for Don during his illness was setting up Caring Bridge on the internet. Through this medium, I was able to post progress reports most every day. He was able to receive messages, encouraging messages from former prep staffers, 31ers, past co-workers, friends, and alumni from all over the United States. He so looked forward to having me read those messages to him each day. And I'm sure many of you here today send him messages through Caring Bridge. You need to know these messages lifted his spirits when he needed it the most. So for that, I'd like to thank you. In the summer of 2016, UAMS had exhausted all the treatment options approved for myeloma, and even a few that were not. He held the record for the most stem cell transplants. At this point, they decided he could return to Monroe and receive his chemo treatments here. Through this whole ordeal, Billy Laird stood by his friend. He always called to check on him when we were in Little Rock, and he never once failed to ask about me. When we were home, he would stop by and have coffee with Don, or they would go to breakfast. And once Don started receiving his chemo here in 2016, Billy would go to oncology. He would bring him coffee, a snack, a newspaper, but the most important thing Billy did for him was give of his time to his friend. He would sit there with conversation, just sitting. If you've ever been to an oncology unit, you know what a lonely place that can be. Some of those patients are all alone. They have no one. These patients are fighting for their lives. They need to know they are not forgotten. And Billy Laird did not forget his friend. This past Sunday, Bill died, the pastor at North Monroe Baptist Church, and I know I see a lot of you that were there Sunday, so I know you heard this. He said the most prophetic thing. He said, people never remember takers, but people never forget givers. Don Weems was a giver. Billy Laird is a giver in every sense of the word. In closing, I'd like to challenge everyone here to go out and be a Don Weems or a Billy Laird to someone in your life. I can't promise that you'll get a building like this named after you, but I can promise you'll make a difference in someone's life. On behalf of the Laird and Weems families, I'd like to thank all of you for being here today and any part that you may have had in making this day a reality for these two great men. Thank you.